I have a question for you. Why wasn't it me?
Carrie.
No, seriously. I really need to hear you say it.
Carrie, what the hell are you doing? Because for real, everyone always say that Mr. Big is the huge red flag in Sex and the City. And listen, I'm not saying it's not, but can we talk about Carrie? Please. Because honestly, this girl makes me mad at my core. For like 3/4 of the series, the outfit, 10 out of 10. The air, obviously. The apartment, a dream. Her job, iconic. But emotionally, girl, we need to talk. And I actually think Carrie is a really interesting character to talk about because she's not a bad person, she's not stupid, she's not incapable of love, she's actually incredibly intelligent. And yet she makes some of the most questionable emotional decisions that I've ever seen on television, which unfortunately makes her very realistic. I feel like every time people talk about Sex and the City, the conversation is basically Mr. Big is toxic, Mr. Big doesn't communicate, Mr. Big can't commit, and I'm like, yes, correct. We can discuss Mr. Big, but that's actually a conversation for a whole different video. Because at some point, while rewatching the series, I started to think, wait a minute, why are we talking about Big as if Carrie is this innocent woman who kept getting hurt by him? Because she's not. And that is what makes the dynamic really interesting. Carrie doesn't just choose emotional unavailable men. She repeatedly participates in relationship and situation that make her unhappy, and that she acts surprised that the situation makes her unhappy. And listen, I know this sounds harsh, but we've all done some kind of version of this. Maybe not the Carrie Bradshaw level of chaos, hopefully, but we've all seen Red Flag and thought, okay, that's probably not great. And then somehow, but maybe he will be different with me. Like, no, he's not gonna be different. Okay, let's take Big. Was he Red Flag? Yes, absolutely. He was emotionally unavailable. He struggled with commitment. He gave Carrie mixed signals. He could be incredibly affectionate one moment and incredibly distant the next. And their relationship became this endless cycle of distance, obsession, reunion, disappointment, breakup, and repeat. And here is what I find fascinating. Carrie's not unaware of what is happening. She knows. She literally spent half of the series analyzing the relationship. She talks about it with her friends. She writes about it. She knows when Big is pulling away. She knows when something feels wrong. And she knows when she's unhappy. And yet she kept coming back. Which means this is not actually a story about a woman that can't see the red flags. It's a story of a woman that sees the red flags but doesn't accept what they mean. And I think there's a huge difference because sometimes we're not confused, we know exactly what is happening, we just don't like the answer. And that is much more uncomfortable. And then we have Hayden, which I'm very sorry. But Carrie, girl, because this man was basically the opposite of Big. He wanted a relationship, he was affectionate, he was present, he wanted to build a life with her, and most importantly, he actually liked her. Like, he was there. And what does Carrie do? She cheats on him with Big. Now, let's be very clear. Big was married in that moment. So basically, yes, Big is absolutely responsible for his part in this situation. But Carrie was also in a relationship and she made a choice. And I think this is really important because usually when we talk about female characters, we are so focused on how the men treat them, what they do wrong, that we completely forget that also women can make shitty choices. And saying this doesn't make Carrie a bad person. It makes her human. She cheats, she feels guilty, she tells Aiden, they break up, and eventually they get back together. And wait a minute, I'm not actually against second chances. I mean, people mess up, but people can grow. People can genuinely regret something and become better. But here the problem is that Carrie never let Big go. And that's where I'm like, what are we doing? Because Aiden isn't asking you to erase your past, he's just asking you to be present in the relationship. And instead, Big somehow remains this third person inside the relationship. And even at one point, Carrie brings Big into the picture while she's with Aiden. I mean, imagine cheating on someone with a man and then basically saying, he's still gonna be part of my life and you need to be okay with that. Like, and this is where I think Carrie is really interesting because I don't think that her biggest problem is Big. I think her biggest problem is what Big represent to her. Because look at the difference between Big and Aiden. Aiden gives her security, Big gives her uncertainty. Aiden is emotionally available, Big is hard to reach. Aiden wants to build something with her while Big let her question if there's actually something to build. And somehow, Big feels more exciting. And I think this happened in real life way more than people want to admit. Sometimes the person that makes you feel the most isn't necessarily the right person for you because intensity and compatibility are not the same thing. You can have insanely chemistry with someone that is completely wrong for you. You can think about someone all day because they makes you anxious. You can be obsessed with someone because you don't know where you stand. And then you call that, "Oh my god, I've never felt this way." Maybe. Or maybe your nervous system needs a nap. And this is probably my biggest issues with the way we romanticize relationships. We sometimes interpret emotional instability with passion. If someone is consistent, available, and clear, we think, is there enough chemistry? But if someone disappear for like 3 days and come back with a message saying, "Hey stranger," suddenly we're like, "Oh my god, there's something about him." No, that is something about your blood pressure. And Carrie does this constantly. She becomes obsessed with the person that is the hardest to have. And the more unavailable someone becomes, the more valuable they seem. Which brings me to one of my favorite questions when it comes to relationships. If someone constantly gives you breadcrumbs, why are you waiting for the full meal? Because at some point, you have to stop asking yourself, how can I get more from this person? And start asking, why am I accepting this amount in the first place? And that is the part that I think Carrie is struggling with. And this is actually why I don't hate Carrie, because she's not a villain. She's a woman with blind spots. And honestly, that's probably why she's so relatable. You can be intelligent, successful, independent, have your life together, have an amazing job, have amazing friends, have incredible taste, be emotionally intelligent in some areas, and still be an absolute disaster when it comes to one specific person. Because intelligence doesn't automatically protect you from attachment. You can know better and still choose differently. You can give to your best friend the most amazing advice on relationship and still go back home and text to the kind of man you told her to block. We've all seen that girl. Sometimes we've been that girl. And that is what makes Carrie interesting. So instead of only asking, is he a red flag? I think sometimes we need to ask, why am I attracted to this dynamic? Because that's a much harder question. If someone repeatedly show you that they're not ready, why are you trying to convince them? If someone makes you anxious more than they make you feel safe, why are you calling that chemistry? And if you already know how the story ends, why are you coming back for another season? Carrie Bradshaw, I'm looking at you. And I think this is the part that get lost when we talk about red flags, because it's very easy to say men are terrible, and listen, sometimes they are. But if the only conclusion you take after a bad relationship is he was toxic, then what do you actually learn? Nothing. Because next time you'll just find another version of him. But if you can look at the relationship and say, okay, he was responsible for his behavior, but was I participating in it? Now you have something you can actually change. And listen, I'm not saying it's your fault. That's not at all what I'm saying. Someone else's behavior, it's always their responsibility, but your boundaries, your choices, your reactions, the relationship you stayed in, the pattern you repeat, those are yours. And listen, I find this honestly much more empowering than just blaming the other person. Because if you can identify the pattern, you can break the pattern. And that's probably the biggest thing that I took by watching Sex and the City again. Sometimes the red flag isn't just the person you're dating, sometimes it's also the version of yourself that keep choosing this same dynamic. The girl keeps waiting, the girl keeps explaining, the girl keeps asking to herself, maybe this time? The girl keeps accepting the breadcrumbs because eventually she hopes she's gonna have the full meal. And maybe the most attractive thing that you can do is not figuring out how to make the other person choose you, maybe realizing that if you have to convince someone to choose you, maybe they're not your person. And honestly, this is a lesson that Carrie takes way too much time to learn. So, is Mr. Big a red flag? Yes, absolutely. But is Carrie completely innocent? Absolutely not. And I think that's what makes Sex and the City so interesting because none of these women are perfect. They're messy, they make terrible decisions, they hurt people, they get hurt, they repeat patterns, they romanticize things that they probably shouldn't, but sometimes they also grow. Finally, which unfortunately that is way more realistic than actually having whole your life figured out by 28. And trust me, I know that. Anyway, Carrie, I love you, but please get some self awareness. And before you come for me, yes, I know Mr. Big have a list of red flag. And honestly, I have a lot to say about that man. But I'm saving that for part 2 because I want to actually break down Mr. Big and ask the question, was he really the villain of the story or we've been looking at the relationship completely wrong? So if you want that video, subscribe because we're not done with Carrie Bradshaw yet.